Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, another entry here based on one of your suggestions. This one being one of the past suggestions over a year ago, if you could believe it. And it was a specific set of suggestions, a video where I was requesting aquatic monsters. So in this case, I looked at the information there, saw this one that I missed last time, and I'm glad to be able to share it with everyone here. I love it because based on the info that I saw, it has to do with the stuff I love, which is it's based on one single location. So if you go to this location and you're lucky, then you'll have a good chance of seeing this particular monster, rather than say with a lot of other cryptids where you have to hop between who knows how many locations. But in this one, it's one area, and it has to do with this. It's this monster known as the Bear Lake Monster, which you're looking at a picture of here. So here is all the information tied to this particular suggestion. So what is this Bear Lake Monster? Well, it's a cryptid of sorts that's encountered there in Bear Lake, which is right on the Utah-Idaho border. So I've never been there near that area. Some of you that have, that'd be great to hear what your comments are later on, even if you didn't know by any chance that this was a monster that's located there. But it grew from mythology, if you can believe it. I mean, this is a being that has been around for a long time, at least over 100 plus years. And with regards to it, here's how it's characterized. Basically, think of it like your average alligator, except much longer, much larger, about 40 feet long to be exact, with very short, powerful legs, but most importantly, of course, is its mouth, its gigantic maw, which it uses to essentially try to track down and hunt its prey around that Bear Lake. And there have been victims, according to the lore associated with this Bear Lake monster. Any unlucky swimmers that happen to be abound, anybody else that's just pretty much by the shore, because apparently this Bear Lake monster can actually come up on the shore just like an alligator would, snatch its victims, and then go back into the water. Well, then you have the stories associated with it. It has a grayish, greenish type color. And then its head, one looks at it carefully, is supposed to resemble that of an alligator. That's what I was mentioning earlier. Essentially, it's just your average alligator. It seems just much larger. Other depictions, though, show it, and you'll see some of the other drawings slash pictures of it here, looking like a crocodile, and then others as a long-lost mosasaur. So I guess it just depends on the type of encounter that people have had. Then they're the ones that state different variations of its depiction. So pretty interesting to see with regards to that. Lots of known sightings from it. None really recently, except for one, which I'll highlight here in a minute. But otherwise, it has become such a popular sighting that it's almost its own tourist type of location there, much like the Nessie is with Loch Ness. Here in this case, this Bear Lake monster, people specifically go to that location, and it's become a tourist type of attraction. No doubt, of course, with regards to that location, a lot of the shops there probably favor that because they push the advertising for it. They try to make it the awareness of it expand. That way they could try to get more tourists, because of course that equals more sales. So you got to keep that in mind too. But still, even after all these years, this Bear Lake monster seems to still be around that area, so much so that people travel specifically to try to see it. But yes, otherwise there's not the earliest known sightings, it seems like, or it was in the 19th century. There was a report of some sort, secondhand accounts that were described by a Joseph C. Rich, who was a Mormon there at that location. He gathered all these secondhand accounts of these sightings, and then it just grew from there. The most recent sighting was the one I mentioned earlier, just a couple years back, 2007 to be exact. This was done by a man, no name known, but apparently he was chronicled on various shows. He was chronicled on that show Lost Tapes, which focuses on stuff related to this, and in it he described his encounter. And then there was one more show, I believe, that Monsters and Mysteries in America, that also chronicled that same man. All he stated was that he was something that he saw, he heard, essentially he was out there at night on the boat on his I guess, trip for whatever purpose, either fishing or something along those lines. But then he heard a distinct growl behind him, and when he looked behind him, that's when he saw this purported Bear Lake monster. It was just there in the water, staring up at him. If you could imagine those eyes, essentially just atop the crest of the water, staring back at him, and that's what you would see that he was watching. But then it just went back into the water. Nothing else in terms of this Bear Lake monster doing anything harmful to this man, but it definitely saw him. It could have done something to him right then and there, but it decided, I guess, that it was just gonna see what it was that was near its water, and then it decided it was no longer needing its attention, and it just moved away. But yes, that is at least the most recent sighting tied to this Bear Lake monster. But that's it. Not much really other info associated with it. I guess the only thing to share is that there was one instance, Pecos Bill, the famous mythological man. Of course, it's something that's made up with regards to Pecos Bill, but still, his stories, his fabled tales, those tall tales that people wrote about him. There's one associated with him taking on this Bear Lake monster, and then after several days, finally defeating this creature. So pretty interesting. That was chronicled there on that same show, Lost Tapes. So pretty interesting to come across that info too. But otherwise, there's not much info to share really. One other thing that is I guess that kind of stands out, that if you go back to 1868, there was a paper at that time called the Deseret News. I think that's how it's said, but it might have been spelled desert instead. But it was also stating that the Indians at that time and knew about a strange serpent-like creature that inhabited the waters there of Bear Lake. So even before all these settlers, all these frontiers people came across that location, they were still, back then at least, the Native Americans knew about this monster there, and they were still talking about it to anyone, I guess, that would ask them about it, and that's how it was chronicled within that paper too. So otherwise, if anyone has any more info, those of you that have someone, like, let's say, travels abound, someone that came across that location there, someone that knows more history tied to it, or even if you happen to be there by accident, again, there in the Utah-Idaho border, and came across this, and heard something along the lines of, let's say, people talking about this Bear Lake monster, that'd be interesting to hear. Again, one of my favorites, because if you go to this location, very specific location, it's not located anywhere else, then you could have a good chance of running into this Bear Lake monster. So I love it whenever I come across cryptids like this, where you can go to a very localized spot and then have that chance of running into it. So alright everybody, thanks again as always, take care.